I'm Emily Richards, equestrian, educator, and adventurer. Join my horse Calypso and me as we explore horse cultures worldwide. By assimilating with each group, we will get an opportunity to view each culture, not only with a camera, but through the ears of a horse. Through these experiences, we will discover and preserve the knowledge passed down for ages, so that these traditions and lifestyles are not lost. The Rocky Mountains are a distinct environment cutting through the middle of North America. A land filled with extremes, elevation changes, storms, and wildfires intensify everything. The vast expanse of the Rockies has drawn many people into its depths, and horses have been instrumental to their success. This harsh, formidable, breathtaking land has a way of influencing and molding all those who call it home. Attracted to the power and challenge of the mountains, we set our sights on learning the lessons of the horsemen who call it home. In July 2020, we set out from the Colorado Plains to ride north through the Rockies. According to my plan, it would take 1,000 miles in 60 days to reach the endpoint on the Idaho-Montana border. We began on the plains, the vast bulk of mountains reaching from south to north in front of us. The first day was spent closing the gap until we were in reach of the foothills. Next, we tackled the steep ascent to Dakin Mountain. That night, like always, I evaluated Calypso's condition. Running my hands over Calypso's legs and back, I was comforted by the familiar feel of her smooth coat and cool legs with no sign of inflammation. But coming to her lower back, I found a slight reaction to my touch. Yet after a long day and being sore myself, I did not put much thought into it. As the sky turned the pale blue of morning, casting the surrounding mountains into stark black masses, I began prepping for another long day of riding. But was a touch of soreness in Calypso's back the night before had already increased. The choice was simple, though not easy for me, as to continue would risk permanent damage to Calypso. Our inexperience would end one path and put us on another. After a mere 2 days and nights, I conceded I was asking too much of Calypso and turned for home. It was a long, contemplative walk down the mountain. We had completed 79 miles and 7,257 feet of elevation gain in 2.5 days of riding. To have just set out on something I planned for so long and have it be over already left me a bit stunned. But the long walk allowed me to determine our next steps and reflect on what went wrong. Regardless of my previous experiences, I still had much to learn from the mountains. Humbled by our trek, but even more determined to learn the ways of the mountain horsemen, I hooked up my truck and trailer and departed once more. With stops throughout Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, we would ride with the outfitters, ranchers, and backcountry horsemen who have been thriving in the mountains for generations. None of the families I met with had the same path to this lifestyle, and many of them learned their horsemanship at different places. However, after extensive time in the mountains, they all came to reflect the same sentiments and philosophies, despite their varied backgrounds. Our time with them and the changes in Calypso revealed the distinct differences that come with this lifestyle. We encountered the many challenges of elevation, bugs, temperature swings, and navigating the rugged terrain. Despite a large amount of land, we frequently dealt with tight spaces due to the extreme gradients. In contrast to what one might expect, the key to thriving amongst these extremes is a constant focus on slow and steady work. This was evident in everything from waiting till horses were more mature to start them, to allowing the young horses to work in minor facets alongside the experienced horses. As a result, these horses remain fit and working far into their older years. The style and traditions of these horsemen are not for show, and all serve a purpose. There is a strong focus on the horse's build, and they are less concerned with bloodlines. No matter the work, the terrain of the mountains call for a broad, solid animal. A wide, stout chest provides strength and stability for traversing steep terrain. Shorter pasterns are less likely to overstrain ligaments and tendons and hold up better over time. A shorter back with good musculature is better for bearing weight and is less prone to injury. These horsemen prefer dark hooves over white hooves. They also look for hooves with good sole depth that are not prone to chipping to tolerate the rocky footing. They wait for the horses to be near maturity before beginning any specific training for their line of work. However, this doesn't mean that the horses are idly spending those first years. During this time, they are out in a herd, immersed in the environment they will come to work in, and learning from the experienced horses around them, developing a basic knowledge that will help them succeed in the future. When they begin their training and are incorporated into the daily work, they learn to approach each task with a calm mind and work through obstacles slowly and steadily. When in work, shoes are a requirement to handle the granite footing. Whether working cattle, packing, or logging, the horses hardly ever break out of a steady walk, and most typically cover around 10 miles in a day's work. One of the great benefits comes in the cycle of work and rest imposed by the weather fluctuations and changing seasons of the Rockies. There's a theme I've seen repeatedly in my past work with horses and remain true in the mountains. The most effective communication is the most subtle. When done at the highest level, it is imperceptible to the untrained eye, and man and animal appear to work as one. Upon meeting with and describing my first attempt, they all quickly pointed out that I had endeavored to cover too many miles, too quickly, and without the aid of a pack horse, had asked Calypso to carry too much. The merits of this life showed strongly in Calypso. The varying grades and rough terrain helped to strengthen her hind end. As a result, she put on surprising amounts of muscle through this journey, particularly considering we hardly moved out of a walk. The calm, methodical nature of this life bolstered our trust and communication. By the end of our journey, I noticed an improved work ethic and confidence to take on different tasks. It felt incomplete to end my time with the horsemen of the Rockies without another attempt at a solo ride. It was the Weminuche Wilderness area that caught my eye, presenting all the challenges the Rockies have to offer, as well as the opportunity to ride and camp on a portion of the Continental Divide Trail. There wasn't much I could do about Calypso's conformation. However, by developing her weaknesses, I could better prepare her. Calypso's front end serves her well, but she has a longer back, stifle weakness due to a previous injury, white hooves, and soles on the thinner side. To help Calypso cope with the hard ground, I utilized renegade boots. I chose these rather than traditional shoes for the added protection to her soles and the ability to take them off when not needed. The following change was reducing the weight and bulk of my gear. I switched from the hard plastic bear can to a soft bear bag for my food, switched from a tent to a tarp for my shelter, and brought food and water filtration systems so I would not require a stove. I based how I loaded my gear on how the backcountry horsemen and outfitters packed. The only items behind the cantle were my sleeping gear and shelter, which was too bulky to keep elsewhere. Heavier gear I put on the pommel, my most condensed weight of food, Water and extra camera gear was in my backpack to keep it balanced and out of the way of Calypso's movements. As we headed into the Wemmanooch wilderness, we maintained the methodical walk of the mountain horses. Our planned route would take 28 miles, over 4,300 feet in elevation gain, and 9 hours of riding. Knowing I would have better weather the first day, I took on the more technical east side of the loop first, so if the predicted rains came early, I wouldn't have to rush through the highest elevations and greatest exposure of the ridge at 12,780 feet. After covering 19 miles, we stopped for the night camping at 10,530 feet in a pristine mountain valley overlooking the expanse of the San Juan Mountains. We completed the leisurely 9-mile descent back to our base camp, finishing before noon on the second day. Calypso, Zala, and I had no problems throughout the ride, and we could easily have maintained that rate of travel as long as we needed. Although not perfect, we have solved many problems. It is human nature when we lose an animal's focus to be louder and bigger to regain that attention. Influenced by the horsemanship of the Rocky Mountains, I'm working on being aware of those moments, focusing on composing myself as a quiet leader that earns her attention versus the obnoxious outsider who demands it. We have adopted more seasonality to our training to replicate the balance I saw, developing the quiet, patient, and relentless style of the mountain horseman. With horses, no matter your previous experiences and skills, there will always be more to learn and discover. New ideas will surprise you and help you grow. Each group we spend time with opens our eyes to new concepts. When you get accustomed to a particular routine, some things are easily overlooked, but by putting yourself and your horse in new environments, these become glaring obstacles. Each experience shows me weaknesses in my program and ways to grow beyond them. It is a never-ending quest for knowledge.